Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Dale, and I am the host of Coffee Time Again. Welcome to the show. This is where
Thank you,
we
Dale.
expose the truth. We expose the truth today on CRT with Dr. George Maurer, and I'm going to introduce George to you and let him tell about himself. Then we'll get started on the show. And welcome again. Hope you enjoy it. Go ahead,
Thank you,
George.
sir. Thank you, sir. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. To introduce myself, I guess I I'm a dad of four kids. Did 22 years. I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, and after getting out of the military, decided to use my post 9/11 GI Bill benefits and went and got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, went on to get something called an education specialist degree, and ran out of benefits. And then COVID hit, so I found myself a little time on my hands since I had started working from home, and gave me an extra 2 hours. And so I did my education specialist degree from Liberty University for a couple of different reasons, but one of them was that at the time they were charging $250 per credit hour for all veterans, even at the doctoral level, which is an incredible bargain. So anyway, with COVID, I had time, decided to go back and finish. I was only 11 classes away. And then when it was about time to write my capstone project, which is sort of a dissertation light, PhDs do a full-on dissertation, but it takes like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. A capstone project, it took me a year and a half to 2 years to do it. And then once I completed it, I converted it into English so normal people can read it, away from academic ease writing, which is, just crazy. So I rewrote it for normal folks, and here we are today.
Wonderful. Glad to have you on the show, George. Well, first question I have, not what is critical race theory. I know basically what is it, but what is it in plain English?
Sure. Critical race theory is the Marxist ideology of oppressor versus oppressed. Um, and basically, when Karl Marx created Marxism, and it is Marxism, you know, make sure you understand that. And when Karl Marx and Engels invented Marxism, it was rich versus poor. Well, then what you do is, for critical race theory, all they're doing is they're making that race against race. And it's true classic Marxism. It is designed to take out capitalism. For those of us who are around during the better part of the 20th century, we saw nation after nation falling to Marxist insurrection, revolution. And so that is what they're trying to do here. However, they know America, Americans like America, we're patriotic. We believe in capitalism and the Constitution, free speech. So they knew a revolution wasn't going to be possible. So what they've decided to do was to try to divide us internally. And critical race theory is one of the tools that they're using to um, take out capitalism, but also the traditional family is a target of Marxism, because they see women, the role of women in families, they see that as oppression. Most mothers would probably tell you being a mother was the most difficult job, but also the most rewarding job they ever had in their entire lives. Marxists see it as flat out oppression, and they need to be liberated from the burdens of raising children and loving a man and being in a marriage. And so, but to better answer your question, I guess, there's ethnic studies and there's critical race theory. They're two different things. Ethnic studies is the positive, healthy exploration of one's culture, leading to self awareness, self confidence, all the things that one needs to be successful in life. Critical race theory, on the other hand, is the relentless focus on only our worst moments in history. For example, slavery, but only Jim Crow, Reconstruction, all these things. But again, only the worst moments. They don't give any credit to the tremendous progress that we've made over the last 150, 75 years. But even worse, critical race theory seeks to assign blame to students who are sitting in the classroom today, who obviously had nothing to do with slavery and all these other things that have happened in our past. And one of the things that critical race theorists like to say is that, well, we're just teaching real history. No, they're not. They're trying to teach a propagandized, weaponized version of history to attack a specific group of people. And when you ban CRT, as many states have done or are trying to do, if you look in, if you read the bills, what they say is what is allowed to be taught is a fact-based, historically accurate version of slavery, fact-based, historically accurate version of Jim Crow. And all of these things should be taught because, one of the most famous lines in history, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it.
You know what? One of my taglines is the culture that forgets its history has no future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's interesting. I didn't know about that. I knew a lot about it, but I didn't know so much. And thank you so much for that answer. That's fantastic. Uh, Never realized they wanted to ban motherhood. How they plan on
Yeah,
getting?
they want to return. Yeah, they want to return to a matriarchal society because the way, and I detail this in my book, the way Marxists see it is that a patriarchal society led to agriculture and animal husbandry, owning livestock, which in turn led to owning property, land, and animals, et cetera, et cetera. And that led to men running families. And then mothers became, oppressed within that family unit. And what they want to do is they want to return to a matriarchal society where sexual relations occur between multiple partners, and the only partner or the only parent that one can identify 100% with 100% certainty is the mother. It's perfectly acceptable for the mother to sleep with multiple men, and well, maybe one of them's got to be the father, but we don't really know who. And so they want to return to that kind of society, and again, I talk about it in my book, but I can't think of anything worse. The most secure, the best way to raise a child, without a doubt, is with a two-parent biological family, you know. And every time, and there's value with having grandparents in the house and all that, but none of that replaces two biological secure parents in a relationship to raise a child. Even when you bring in a stepfather or a stepmother, they're not as successful as two biological parents. And history bears that out.
Well, I know that having two parents in the household is optimal. I understand that. I've seen that too
Sure,
many research studies done on this, but I didn't know about step parents not being as successful because I was a product of stepchildren.
sure,
My dad remarried, mother never did, but I was raised by a stepmother, the age of
sure.
12 on, till I
And
was
and there, and
14.
Yeah, and I'm not saying step parents can't be successful because obviously many step parents have been successful.
Yeah,
I was a step parent myself,
yeah,
am a step parent myself, and I have a very good relationship with those children. They're adults now, but
yeah,
I would like to think that I did okay. We did all right, but again, if you're looking at pure statistics, pure numbers, when a child is raised by their two biological parents, they tend to be more successful in life than any other situation.
yeah. That surprises me that you need that. It just surprises me about step parents. Is all. So it's
Sure,
what I was attempting to say is it just surprises me about that. I believe it because I know that the connection with biology, the connection between a father and a child and a mother and a child who are biological parents is so much better, so much tighter
sure.
in a family that's healthy. And I
Yes,
believe that's the key word. There has to be a healthy relationship between the
yes,
parents and the children.
definitely. Yes.
And that is a difficult chore. That
Yeah, the most difficult, most rewarding job you'll ever have
Yep,
in
I
your
know.
life,
I've got
fathers
three
and
kids.
mothers.
I got
Yeah.
three boys, all grown, but I got three boys and 12 grandchildren.
Oh, wow. Well,
Don't
congratulations.
know how that happened. Uh, do they teach CRT in kindergarten through 12th, right?
They do teach CRT in K through 12. A lot of critical race theorists try to say that it's not taught in elementary school. But the opening paragraph, the very first paragraph of my book, is titled, Yes, They're Lying to You. And they are lying to you. In this one particular instance, in Riverside, California, Unified Schools, there in 2021, the school board uh, told parents were beginning to complain about critical race theory. And the school board told parents at three different meetings, we do not teach critical race theory. And even when I inquired with Riverside Unified in 2023, I believe 2022 or 2023, I said, "Hey, hey, do you guys teach critical race theory?" And I got back the letter saying, "No, we do not teach critical race theory. You can see our course description online for history and social science." And so, uh, and I went and I looked, but I'll get to that in a moment. But the problem with all of this was 1 year earlier, that very same school board with the very same members voted for and approved a brand new ethnic studies curriculum for Riverside schools. Of 27 learning objectives, four of them had the words critical race theory in the title, and 11 more had direct references to critical race theory principles. So, and again, these were the exact same people 1 year earlier. Hey, we got this ethnic studies. Here's what's in it. And a year and 1 year later on, they claimed they knew nothing about critical race theory. Oh, it's not in there. Now, when I went to the course descriptions online for the social sciences, I found, ta-da, critical race theory. I didn't find the words critical race theory, and that will happen with a lot
Yeah,
of parents. And this is one of the tips that I give to parents. It's designed as a helping guide to help parents learn more about critical race theory and what to do if you find it. But one of the things you can do, go out to the course descriptions for your child's classes and see what they read. You're probably not going to see the words critical race theory, but if you see words like oppression, marginalization, social justice, systemic racism, your child is being exposed to critical race theory.
yes. I'm familiar with the terms and I agree. I think they're really good catchphrases that tells us, because my children are grown, some of my grandkids are grown.
Yeah.
So, and so I don't get involved too much, and I'm separated from my kids by distance and other reasons. But
Sure.
uh, critical race theory has been around for how long? Since Marx
Well,
himself?
yeah, it really got started in the 70s and then took off a little bit in the 90s. And then it really hit around 2021, right
Mm-hmm.
around the time COVID was around. That's when it really kind of got big. But they've been sneaking this into teachers, colleges. They've been sneaking it into the curriculum. They've been sneaking it into teacher training, annual diversity training. It's been going on a very, very long time. And at teachers' unions, I mean, you name it, they've been very thorough with this. And you have to, teachers' colleges, yeah, I mean, you got to go to teachers' college to be a teacher, right?
Yeah,
Well, they're teaching critical race theory. Again, they may not call it critical race theory. They
right.
may call it diversity or DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They may call it social justice, but it's critical race theory. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm really upset about that DEI stuff.
Yeah. It's all the same stuff. It's,
It
if
is.
if your moral character is defined by your race, that's critical race theory. They can
Yeah.
call it DEI, they can call it anything they want. But, if they're seeking to blame you for things that happened a long time ago based on your race, things that you had nothing to do with, it's critical race theory. I
It is.
mean, if one race is superior than another in your training, and one, if you are an oppressor based on your race, critical race theory.
Yep. They blame everybody except themselves for their problems.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the interesting thing about this is the position of critical race theorists and anti-racists. They're about the same thing. No, they are the same thing. Their position is simply this: by being racist against people, they're going to somehow work to end racism. By introducing negative racist tension, racial tension between people, they're going to somehow come out with a positive racial outcome. And it's like, okay, I'm going to stop crime by committing crime. And how I'm going to fight against crime today is I'm going to throw this rock through the store front window. I mean, none of this makes any sense. It really doesn't. It makes zero sense.
Does. I just did a podcast on bail bonds and the trouble they're
Hmm.
having with the bail bonds with race. The number
Mm,
of blacks that are being arrested has always been higher than the number of whites.
sure.
And it's up.
Sure. Yeah. And, an anti-racist would say it's based on race.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is. But I do know, based on crime statistics in the United States, that African Americans commit crimes at a rate twice that of whites and Hispanics and
Right.
Asians. So is there another factor for that bail being higher? I mean, I'd have to look at each individual case. I don't know, but but when you say, "Oh, it's all about race," well, I'm going to need to see more evidence about that. I'm going to need to see what the crimes are about, and like, for example, the achievement gap. Are you familiar with the achievement
No,
gap in
no, I'm
schools?
not.
Okay. White and Asian students perform at higher levels than African American and Hispanic students. This has been going on for a long time. Now, according to anti racists and critical race theorists, it is based on race. It is because school programs, school curricula are written for white children to excel while at the same time hampering students of color. Now, I've yet to see a good explanation for how that could be possible, but more recent research shows that perhaps it's more closely tied to socioeconomic status. A family with means, if a child is struggling with school, if they've got a little money, they can hire a tutor. And an at-risk student in a poor family, chances are his parents or her parents, they're in survival mode. They're just trying to put food on the table every day. And they're going to probably not give that at risk student the attention he needs to turn it around.
Right.
And so, more recent research shows that this achievement gap is more closely tied to, again, socioeconomic status, parental involvement, all of these other things. But if you talk to an anti-racist, it's about race first. But if you talk to an anti-racist about anything, it's always race first. Race before everything. That's always the number one problem if you ask them.
Yeah, I do know that I don't know the exact numbers. I had them when I did the podcast, but most black families are broken anyway. Uh, Single mother, 4 or 5 kids, or
Yeah,
violence is not a
I
part of the
haven't,
picture.
I need to look at those numbers. I have
Yeah,
not looked at those numbers,
yeah, they're
but
interesting.
I would bet I would, without, I need to look into that a little bit
Yeah,
better.
I would.
But there's, but there's broken families of all races. I grew up in a broken family
Put
myself.
it out.
So I mean, that's just where our society is today.
That goes with that social economic thing, though, even because of more percentage-wise of the population,
Right.
that family unit is pretty well destroyed in minority families for lots of reasons. But
Sure.
uh, when I did that one on bail bonds, they're doing these free bonds, and you know how that's free bonds. You get out, you don't do have to post a bond; they just let you go.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah, well, they have a 40% increase in crime in the cities. Houston's the one I'm talking about because that's where I know that's where this lawyer I talked to was from,
Right.
Houston, and they got an 80% failure to appeal rate.
Wow. Well, if you don't hold people accountable for crime, they're going to commit crime.
Yeah,
That why worry about it? In San Francisco, they created a law where if you stole less than $900, they didn't even arrest you.
yeah,
So what happened? Everybody went into the stores and started stealing $800 worth of stuff and walking right out
$899.
the door. You
Yeah,
know?
that leads into the critical race theory because they're blaming the whites for creating these laws, according to him,
Yes,
Ken Goodman.
yes, yes. They say that critical race theory bans are done simply because due to white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
because white people don't want to know the truth. They don't want their children to learn how racist they are, supposedly,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's and again, according to critical race theorists, anti-CRT laws are designed to keep white supremacy in place.
Yeah.
And and again, if you dig into it a little bit, that's not actually the truth, not even a little bit.
No.
But and critical race theorists, they like to say we want to teach real history. No, they don't. No, they do not.
I've been hearing for several months now, almost a year, that there are two school districts on the East Coast, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. I just been hearing it, that they start teaching American history in 1860.
So they start teaching American history in 1860, you said?
That's when America started. That's when they start teaching history. When you go to
Hmm.
school, you don't hear anything about history till 1860.
Hmm. So no Revolutionary War, no
No,
Constitution, no Bill of Rights. Huh. That's that's bad. That's not good.
that's not good. And that's again
No.
because those are the people that are tearing down statues.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And you may not like Robert E. Lee, but he's part of history.
Right.
And we need to know who he is. We need to know what he did. It's all part of it. We need to understand what the Confederate Army was and what the Civil War was about. And
Yeah.
again, there's another thing. Critical race theorists seem to misrepresent everything.
Yeah.
And one of the things they love to say is that the wealth of this country was built on slavery, and absolutely incorrect. The North during the Civil War had many more resources available to them because they were manufacturing and for all of manufacturing, agriculture, all of those reasons. But the Southern model of agriculture with slavery, there was a lot of people who believed that even if we didn't end slavery with the Civil War, it would have eventually gone bankrupt because
Hmm.
it's just a stupid way to do business.
Yes.
From a purely, mental,
Numbers game.
economic outlook, slavery is just a stupid way to do business.
Get ready
And
to
the
go
thing
broke.
was, the South was poor. The South was very poor. And the war only lasted for 4 years because, Robert E. Lee was a brilliant military tactician.
Yeah.
He was much better general than the generals in the North.
Hmm.
However, again, the North had many more resources,
Yeah.
and that's why they eventually won that war. And see, these are the kind of things we need to be teaching our kids every
Yes.
single day. They need to be taught just how special our Constitution is. It's one
Oh,
of the most remarkable documents in the history of the entire world.
it is.
And our kids are not learning that. Absolutely. I mean, there's no, you know, I have no doubt about that. So
Right.
many of these kids treat America like it's a bad place
Yeah.
when it's actually a wonderful place.
It's such a
There's
bad
a
place.
reason people,
Yeah.
why do people come here?
Right.
It's just, and we happen to be one of the most racially tolerant societies in the world. But if you listen to an anti racist, we are the focus and the center of all racism on the entire planet.
Of course.
It's just not
We should.
true.
The thing is, slavery is not dead.
No, they say that there are more slaves today than there were at any other point in history.
Yeah.
The Middle East, Africa, um,
United States.
Asia, perhaps some areas of Asia, but yeah, slavery is alive and well, and there are slaves of all races, and there
Right.
have always been slaves of all races down through history. So this is not a uniquely African American experience in history in the world.
We've had slaves since the days of Moses,
Yeah,
the
Moses
Egyptians.
himself was a slave, wasn't he?
Right. Yes, he was. He
Yes.
wasn't. They put
So
him in a basket and sent him away. He became a pharaoh. But
right,
his people, the Jews, were slaves of the Egyptians.
right.
Going back to Joseph and the coat. But so we've had slaves forever. We still have them today. All over the world. You go into any motel, you're going to find three or four in any motel in the world, or more, at least three or four that are slaves.
Yeah, they call it human trafficking more
Yes,
than slavery
it is.
today. And this open border that we have on our southern border, a lot of those people who are coming up there are being trafficked.
Yes, they are.
Um, for, I mean, I don't even, well, I know why, but I don't really want to say why here.
Okay.
Uh, the most horrible things you can imagine, that's why they're being trafficked.
Yes, I know.
So,
I've done a couple of podcasts on them and with other people dealing with them, including a border control agent. But if they stop calling it just human trafficking, that humanizes it. They put it to what it really is, slavery.
yeah,
I think we could
but
get more action on it because that goes
perhaps,
back into the CRT. Because they know that the slavery is still alive and well, and they're playing on it.
right.
So I get real upset about that. But what
Well,
do
I
they
think any decent person would let that bother them.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
so too.
anyone with a conscience would be bothered by what's going on in the world today because it's horrible.
It
It's
really,
absolutely horrible.
yeah, it really is. I'm was a drug and alcohol therapist. I had several victims, survivors of slavery in my group.
Yeah.
So 24 years I was a therapist. It was really bad. That's what got me going is seeing these
And
men and
it
women, not
just,
just women, it's men too.
yeah, it destroys lives. I
Yeah,
mean, there's just no other way to say it.
doesn't.
It destroys people for their entire life.
It
And
does.
many, as you probably know, never really get over it,
They don't.
you
They
know?
the ones I dealt with never really did.
Yeah.
But where do they teach CRT besides everywhere?
Well, again, it is definitely happening in K through 12, despite the denials by critical race theorists. It is happening absolutely. They had the Dr. Cardona, who is our Secretary of Education uh, in Washington, D.C., he went on The View a few years back. And and so I could tell by the face he just made, you and I agree about The View.
Yeah.
But one of the ladies was like, okay, for once and for all, tell me, is critical race theory taught in K through 12 schools? With that kind of snotty little attitude, of course. And Dr. Cardona, he kind of, well, uh, I don't think so, not that I'm aware of, no. Where is it taught? The View host said next, well, I think it might be taught in law school. Okay. Well, the disingenuousness of this exchange, well, let's just say it. Dr. Cardone is a flat out liar. Okay. Because while he was on The View, the Department of Education was putting the finishing touches on a brand new education initiative that contained wall to wall CRT. I read the bill, I read the initiative: oppression, marginalization, systemic racism, white supremacy, all of it.
All the time.
And here he is on TV pretending that well, geez, I just don't know. I just, oh man, and then here's the other thing. Before he came to DC, he was the Secretary of Education for the state of Connecticut. Want to guess what was the last thing he did in Connecticut before going to DC? One of the
CRT.
last things. He
Oh, CRT.
created an education initiative chock full OCRT. And I read the initiative, part of my research: marginalization, oppression, white supremacy, social justice, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So the chances are, well, it's taught across the country. It's being taught just about everywhere. Now, you may be lucky enough to be in a class where it's not being taught. I had a coworker who, we got to talking about my book, and he goes, I've heard about this. I don't know what it is. I'm a little worried about it. And I wasn't finished with the book at the time, but I gave him a copy. And I said, you know what? Go ahead and read the book, go through it a little bit, and then, and just to save you a little bit of time, go online to your children's course descriptions, as I described earlier in the podcast here, and look for those keywords: oppression, marginalization, white supremacy. And he did read the book. He read part of it, not all of it, but he went online and he did not find those words. So just because it's in a lot of places doesn't necessarily means it's everywhere. So there are schools that do not have CRT indoctrination in their lessons, but there are plenty that do. And again, that's why I wrote this book, so parents can determine which type of school their children or their child is going to.
Yeah. I didn't know that there were a few places they didn't teach I thought it was just pervasive to,
And this is in California too, believe it or
oh
not.
my Lord.
This is in
How they do
California.
that in California?
Well, they haven't missed California. As a matter of fact, just a year or two ago, the state of California mandated, they created something called the California Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, mandatory by 2030, already being taught in Sacramento, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, our big cities. And so, but it's a 1 year ethnic studies model curriculum. And that will be and you have, in order to graduate high school, you have to take this class, just like you need 2 sciences, 3 maths, 3 English classes, all these things you need to graduate high school. The class of 2030 is going to have to take this 1 year ethnic studies model curriculum to graduate, to get their high school diploma. Now, the official position of the state of California is that the ethnic studies model curriculum does not contain CRT. I read the first 600 pages, and I can confirm I did not find the words critical race theory anywhere in those pages. However, out of the first 600 pages, I found 591 references to words like oppression, marginalization, white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
When I was in eighth grade, I was in Maurer, California. I don't know if you know where that is or not, but it's 80 miles north of Sacramento.
Okay.
And one of the things we had to do to get out of eighth grade
Mm-hmm.
was to study a year-long curriculum on the Constitution, which I
Wouldn't that
think
be
I need to
nice
go back
today?
to.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice today? And
Oh,
you know what?
man.
While you're doing that, how about basic financial management in your
Yeah,
adult life? How about something like that, you know?
I had that in high school. I had, but not like how to do a checkbook, how to balance a checking account, how to do all this stuff I learned in high school.
That would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that,
I'd love to bring stuff like that back.
I like to be shop back, home economics back, all band, sports. I
Mm-hmm.
hate sports with a purple passion, but we need them.
Sure.
It creates a rounded, more fulfilled person.
Well, I do know that came from a broken family. My mom was in survival mode, and I definitely struggled in high school. And I hate to think where I may have ended up if I didn't have high school football and wrestling to fall back on. It gave me discipline. It kept me off the streets. It taught me how to achieve, how to work toward a goal. Um, you know, uh, so yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sports is very important, and
my
all those other things as well.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not a sports fan. I just don't like sports at all. But yeah, when I was in high school, I lived alone. I left my parents. I left my grandmother living next door to
Oh
my
wow,
grandmother. So I was living in the house alone, no parental supervision of any kind. No, no.
wow,
From the time I was 14 till I was 19. And
wow.
I had some problems. We won't go into them. There's just a lot of them, but alcoholism
Sure.
being one. But
Well, I don't know
it was
many
my own.
14-year-olds who would be in a situation where they could successfully live their lives and raise themselves. So,
It was difficult.
congratulations to you for finding a way to make it work.
Yeah, not easy, but I did it, and today I'm in pretty good shape. And have been for
Good.
35 years. Anyway, do school administrators and teachers, ha ha ha, of course, lie to parents about CRT? Yes, they
Well,
do.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we talked about that a little bit already.
Yeah,
Um, the Riverside, California, again, during 3 school board meetings, looked at parents and said, we do not teach critical race theory. And well, they did. Based on my research, they do. I found critical race theory in their ethnic studies curriculum, and I found CRT in their online course descriptions. And again, they deny it, but it's there. Just because you take the words critical race theory out, but leave the content behind, that doesn't mean you're not teaching critical race theory. And the thing is, these teachers, they're smarter than that. They know what they're doing. They know they're teaching critical race theory, and they know they're lying to parents. And so, you know, I just don't put any behavior past these people. They're horrible human beings. There's just no other way to say it. They're horrible, horrible people.
Yes, trying to destroy our country, which is a great country. At least it was.
But even more direct, they're destroying our children.
Yes,
And
that's right.
one of the things, there was a course called Wit and Wisdom in Tennessee, and one of the parents noticed this little girl, her daughter, used to go to the playground. Oh, the boy in the yellow shirt, the girl in the blue shoes. Never did she mention race at all. She never noticed. Never, it was just not part of her vocabulary. She watched one 13-minute critical race theory video. Suddenly, the words "that black girl" and "that white boy" became a regular fixture in her language. And so, what she did was she began to look into this wit and wisdom, and she took it to a psychologist. And they said, hey, what is this? And because it's just negative, 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 one negative thing right after another, and it never lets up. And children were becoming depressed. They were talking, we got little kids, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, talking about suicide,
Yeah.
talking about feeling guilty about slavery and wanting to kill their family for it. And they asked this doctor, what is this? And the doctor said, this is called the psychology of shame. And what you do is you shame someone with negative, just negative repetitive things. And what it does is you break a person down. All of the things that you loved and cared for before are negative. It's bad. America's bad. Your family is bad. You're bad, you know. And what happens is it rips a person down to nothing.
Yeah.
And this allows for new programming to be inserted. It is a classic brainwashing technique. They use it against prisoners of war in in prisoner camps after they've been captured. I mean,
Yeah.
you name it. And instead of using it against adults, these folks are using it against our children.
6-year-old children.
Again, these are horrible, horrible human beings, and they know exactly what they're doing. They
Yes.
know exactly what they're doing.
Well, that answered that question. What is the psychology? One of your questions is what is the psychology of shame? You just answered it very well.
Yeah, thank you. But it,
It's great.
it's
I can
it,
see how
it
it works too. On a 6-year-old, it's easy to break them down because their minds will
real
think.
easy. That's how they did it in Nazi Germany. That's how
Yep.
they did it in Soviet Russia. That's how they did it in Red China. I
Yep.
mean, you name it. That's how they do it. They get to them young, and they strip them down to nothing and begin inserting new information. Your parents are not where your loyalty should lie. It should lie to the state. It should lie to our exalted leader. And if you catch your mom or dad doing something wrong, report them. And plenty of kids did in those nations: Nazi Germany, Red
Yes,
China,
you did.
Soviet
I
Union.
know.
Lots of kids turned in their parents.
Yeah. My study of history, going all the way back to the Greeks, this is something that's been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Without question. Without question.
Yeah. And you've already described in several cases. Well, let's go back up here. I missed a question. CRT and ethnic studies, are they the same thing?
No. And as I mentioned earlier, again, ethnic studies is the positive, healthy study of one's culture. It gives you self-confidence. And Stanford research shows without question that ethnic studies has value, especially for at-risk students of color. They may not have the support at home, but they come and here's a class where they learn good things about themselves. In a true ethnic studies course, they're going to learn good things about themselves, positive things. Yeah, you know what? They're going to learn about slavery if it's an African Americans thing, African American studies. But you know what? They're also going to learn about music, maybe sports, maybe Hollywood, and how as a group they've become very successful in those fields. I mean, they dominate the music industry. They
Yep.
dominate many sports things these days. They dominate Hollywood in many ways as a group. They've been tremendously successful despite all of the horrors that they've had to live through.
Mm-hmm.
And and then when you take again when you critical race theory is this relentless focus on only the worst moments.
Yeah.
And in South Carolina, they just had a 2-year test program where they were teaching something called advanced placement African American studies. And the state was running it, and the state just decided to stop it all of a sudden. And there's a couple of reasons possibly why. First of all, uh, South Carolina is passing a bill right now, which says which is will ban critical race theory. It doesn't say critical race theory in the bill, not that I saw it anyway. But again, it's you cannot teach one race is superior to another. You cannot teach one race is oppressive, oppressive just by being that race. You can't say white people are oppressive just for being white, intentionally or unintentionally. You can't say moral character of someone is based on their race. You can't say all those things. But it does say teach fact-based, historically accurate, courses about slavery and Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. We've already talked about that. But the thing is, it got stopped all of a sudden, and the local schools can teach this class still, but the state's not running it anymore, which means the local school systems are going to have to find money to do it.
Yeah.
And we all know money is short.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is the students may have to pay for the final end of course test. And this end of course test, they need to pass it in order for them to get like college credit for it. And I think it cost $100, which, you know, uh, your average middle class family could probably come up with that money. But you know what? How many at-risk students whose parents are struggling now? It's off limits. They can't afford that.
Nope.
So now it's no longer an option for them. And that's the thing about critical race theory and a lot of these types of initiatives. The victims are the people that they pretend they're helping. They say, oh, we want to help at-risk students of color, but who's the victim in this? Who can no longer take this course because it was they had to insert their little psychology of shame and their negative into this ethnic studies course
Yeah.
that the state has decided not to teach anymore because they see this law coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
And so again, the people they pretend to help are their biggest victims, and it
Yeah.
always seems to be the way.
Well, it's Marxism, and that's the way it is.
Yes,
They want to help the ones who's going to be hurt the most.
yes,
You're not able to, for whatever reason, the benefit that you just can't do it. $100 to you or I probably could come up with pretty easy, but to some African American family that's like you said is struggling to put food on the table, where are they going to get $100 to them
yeah.
is a month's groceries.
A family of any race who is struggling, I mean, you don't what if a white kid wanted to take the class because he thought it'd be an interesting thing to do, and it would be a good way to get college credit before graduating high school. Now he can't do it, and he probably, if it hadn't if it hadn't been infused with CRT, it might have been a wonderful learning lesson for him,
Yep.
you know It might have been a life-changing experience for him. You know, growing up in South Carolina. I think we can agree there's probably plenty of racism down there. I've
Yep.
got friends who live in North Carolina, and I know I heard things said there
Yep.
that I never heard growing up in New Jersey.
Nope.
And you know what? And maybe that white kid who was exposed to all these negative things, if this ethnic studies course had been a true ethnic studies course, positive, focused on the African American culture, maybe he would have learned something and maybe he would have been just a little less racist
You learned about
taking
Booker
it.
T. Washington.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. You've been over this several times, but I'm still going to ask the question. How do parents recognize when CRT when they remove the words critical race theory? You've been over that. Oppression.
Right. Oppression, you go out to the course descriptions and you look for words like oppression, systemic racism, social justice, marginalization, uh, differential racialization, which is a huge word, and that just means different treatment between people of different races. And so, and when a course is teaching children that the system treats people of different races differently, that is critical race theory. And when you recognize that, it's time to take a stand. And when it's time to take a stand, you know, a lot of times it can be scary to try to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, one of the things I recommend in my book is to go find like minded individuals, form a group, and, you know, do your research, make sure that you document everything accurately, and then you present those findings to the school. And you do it in a manner that they can't, you know, they can't deny it. They'll try, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't deny it. And one of my very important uh, tips, and I have these tips throughout the book, but one of them is, you know, attending school board meetings and having your say. And if you go to a school board meeting and you want to say something, make sure you find out how long you have to talk. Maybe it's 2 minutes, maybe it's 3 minutes, and write your speech out completely and word for word, and then bring it on your phone or maybe a piece of paper and read it as you're saying it. And that way, you know, make sure it's timed out to whatever the correct time is. Read it to other people before you go to the school board meeting, and read it word for word. Eye contact does not matter, but do not. But if you read it like that, it helps you keep your emotions in check.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing you want to do is lose your temper. And that's a hard thing to do.
Oh,
When
yeah.
these school boards look at you and you know they're lying right to your face, and man, your mama bear or papa bear senses are kicking in and you feel your children are threatened. I mean, you know, that gets the blood pumping, that gets the adrenaline going.
It does.
And if you're not careful, you're going to say something that you are going to regret later. And the one thing to remember is that these people are professional victims. Okay. They're very, very good at pretending you're the problem. Yeah, you just lied to them and you made them upset, but the fact that they got upset, they're the real culprit here. They're the real problem. And they'll do it. They'll do it to you in a second, in a heartbeat, they will do it. So just be really careful. Once find like-minded people, make sure you put your speech, whatever it is, into a nice little format, write it down, put it on your phone, piece of paper, and then read from it directly. I just did this last week at my local school board meeting about critical race theory. I read it off my phone. Didn't even look up at anybody. I just read it off my phone. And so, and you know, I maintained my composure, said everything I needed to say, and no one on the school board could accuse me of being a domestic terrorist or
Nope.
anything mean like that
Nope.
because I kept my composure. So,
I was going to ask you, it's not on your paper, but does bringing in the press do any good at all? Or they've just
Uh,
survivors too, which I think they are, but
well, I that's a tricky question. In most cases, I would say no, because they're lying for the school. If you're going to go to ABC or CNN or the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of these places, they're lying to protect the school.
yeah,
We had a school administrator in one of the counties here in California, and same thing, denying CRT to parents, um, and then they did a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request for all emails related to it. And of course, they dragged their feet, but eventually they had to produce the emails. And guess what? Critical race theory.
mm,
Um, and so what happened was about a year later, this lady was up for reelection, and the LA Times wrote this glowing story about this woman, like she was the next coming of Jesus Christ. Oh, this is the most, wonderful, talented, caring educator the state of California has ever had. I mean, so yeah, I mean, we know what the purpose of that story was.
yeah,
So you have to be really careful about going to the news and reading articles. And one of the things that I've done actually, or that I'm doing every day, I have a Facebook page.
mm,
And I'm not into cute titles. I like to kind of keep it clear, but I have a Facebook page titled using the same title as my book, Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer. That's the Facebook page. And every morning I go out there and I find the latest stories about critical race theory across the country. And there was one today from there's a it's a news source called the Grio, and they wrote an op-ed about the South Carolina situation where they ended the advanced studies
mm,
African studies program, and it was the most hateful thing you've ever heard. Just racist, racist, racist. But I, of course, in the beginning, I give a little blurb. Hey, this is a problem for these reasons, but this is what's going on out there. This is what people are saying. Oklahoma, they had an anti-CRT law that was passed. Well, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, oh, aren't they fantastic? They just want civil liberties. That's all. Well, they just sued the state of Oklahoma, and they've got a temporary stay on this law, so they can't not stop. They can't enforce the law. They have to allow critical race theory while this thing is been paused. Um, but anyway, those are the kind of articles that I find and I post on this thing. And I always have a little commentary to kind of explain it a little bit. So if anyone out there is interested in keeping up with the latest critical race theory news from all sources, I post it on this Facebook page.
that's
And if it's from one of those shysters who are obviously lying, I say it right up front. So the
so.
people
What's the
reading
name
the
of
stories, they know
like
what they're looking at.
what I normally do is put the name of the book right over your head.
Okay.
And so, what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back.
This is a good ending question. THT. I think I can get it large enough to be read, but small enough to fit on the page on the screen.
It's a long title. It's a long title. But again, I wanted a title where when someone read it, they had no, again, I don't like cute titles.
No,
I
no,
like
either.
crystal clear titles. I wanted a title that when someone read it, they knew exactly what they were getting in my book.
Yeah. You
And
don't mind
so,
if I
and
use
that's why I
CRT?
came up with that title.
You don't mind if I use CRT as the
Say
next
again?
step up? critical race
That's
theory.
fine. Yeah, CRT in your school, how to fight back. That'd be okay. Just to make it fit on the screen, sure, no
Yeah,
problem.
thank you.
So, yep.
So what strategies should we use to protect our kids?
Well, again, stay involved. Go out there, look at the course descriptions for your children's classes. Attend classes if you have the time. If you can take off from work for a little bit and then attend school with your child once in a while, do it. Absolutely. But you need to get involved. They're counting on you not paying attention. And if you're not paying attention, that's when they can get in there and do all the things that they want to do without you noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you may begin noticing when your kid comes home and starts saying things are like, "Ooh, that's a little weird. Where'd that come from?"
Yeah,
Uh, so stay involved. Stay involved.
stay involved. I think that's one of the best things you said all day. I want to thank you for being here, George. This has been very, very interesting. I'm glad that you came on the show and talked about this. I've learned an awful lot myself. I'm sure some of my listeners have learned quite a bit. Maybe some of them will start being involved. We can get rid of some of this.
Well, well, I appreciate you having me. And again, I wrote this book to help parents. There are parents like my coworker across this country. They've heard critical race theory. Maybe they've even tried to research it. They Google it, and the first 50 hits they get say that critical race theory is the most awesome thing in the world. And it's not.
No,
Not even a little bit. And again, Google and Facebook, they're all helping out the critical race theorists. They're working against you to get this information. And that's why I wrote this book, to help parents who have questions, who aren't sure what to do, or once they find it, they want to know what to do next.
so where can you
That's
get
why I
it?
wrote this book.
So where can you get it? Amazon?
It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I'm working on an Audible version as we
Oh,
speak, and it should be out in about a month or so.
okay.
It's going to take me another week or two to finish it, and then it takes Audible a couple of weeks to turn it around. So,
I'll keep a lookout because I'm a member of Audible and I read a lot from Audible or have them read to me a lot. I like Audible.
yeah, I'm a big fan of audiobooks.
I
So,
am too. All right. Thank you very much, George. You've been a marvelous guest, and I will uh, get this. It's going to be about 3 weeks before I can get it published. I've got two ahead of you.
okay.
All right, so it'll be about 3 weeks, but I'll get it edited and set up and ready to go. So all I have to do is load it up. So you take care of yourselves. Keep up the good fight. I'm going to join you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dale. I really appreciate it. It was an honor, and you keep up the good fight as well. Thank you
Uh,
again.
You betcha. Bye.